And today we are talking about 1099. So of course, 1099 is a very important things for business at the end of the year. So you got your whole year under your belt. And now when you go back to your accounting, go back to your QuickBook, if you look at the people you send check to, so some of them would give you a W-9, right? W-9 that has their name, business name, and the EIN number. So you know that those people are your 1099 recipient, 1099 NEC, non-employment income. Okay, those are the people we need to issue 1099 so they can claim that on their own tax return as income. This is really a issuer and the recipient's relationship is like your vendor. You're paying money to them. They provide service. So you issue a 1099 NEC. So today's webinar, and I have got a list of things that I want to quickly run you through because they are useful, they're important for you. And making sure that this year, 2021, when you issue 1099, you're doing it right. And I'll tell you this, in Biden's proposal, and there's billions are giving to IRS to increase audit. And IRS audit came from, they don't just go random draw everything. They have a reason for certain things. So IRS audit is typically related to things came to their attention. So the way they came to their attention is when you file 1086, say you got contractor and you issued 1099, then you also submit that with the 1096, right? So IRS has that 1096 and knows who you issued the amount to. If that person didn't report, or for whatever reason, there's there's person reporting different number than what you reported. Those could be leads for IRS system to ring you out and then making you be a subject for audit candidates, right? So this is what we call about data match process inside of IRS system that you want to know that they're coming from filings. They're coming from data that they generated through the system. For example, merchant account issue 1099K, the banks issue interest income, mortgage interest expense, all of these forms becoming a lead for IRS to know that who they want to look at. So before I dive into our content more today, I do want to mention two things, and I have a book on Amazon, and please check on that. It's called Appointment with Ying at 8 a.m. is how to start a business. I also have that in Spanish version. I serve on the National Taxpayer Advocacy Panel, and it is a volunteer position to help IRS be better and on behalf of the taxpayer. So knows that I'm actually working on that, so you can bring leads and the issues and the concerns, ideas of making IRS better. For example, no more audit. I'm just kidding, right? Of course, audit is one way to make sure that people are doing things all the same. So your playing field is actually even. And there's equities inside our system, right? You can't be like having some people doing one thing, the other people doing different things, and they're just people don't care, and then they don't have to pay taxes. That wouldn't be right? So of course, no responsibility disclaimer. That's our thing, and we want to make sure that this is a free webinar. So all the advices, and even if it is wrong, we don't take responsibilities, but you want to understand why we're saying that. So we're always here, we're available just in case you need to know, and you can always reach us. So considering now, let's talk about vendor, because we are talking about 1099, right? That is a vendor, that is a definition of vendor reporting, and you report 1099 for your vendors. Then now you wonder that, okay, how do I define that? Is my brother-in-law vendor? Depends, right? So typically a vendor is an individual contractor or business that does work for you. And they tend to get paid for project. They do not get paid normally by time. Okay, but of course their subcontractor also billing by time, but they're truly freelance. They're subcontractor because they don't rely on you, and they charge your time, but they have this project that they know exactly what they're charging. But if you say, well, I have a secretary, I pay her by time, and she is a subcontractor, no. And in that particular setup, and this person will be viewed as employee. Okay, so vendor take care of their own taxes, so you don't have to withhold. You also should not develop anything like 401k matching plan and medical insurance, and that's just not part of the deal with the vendor, right? So they also are independently on their own, could serve other people. You may be one of their customer. Okay, you don't have to be the only one, but of course, if you're a big company, you're this particular vendor, maybe you are their majority of sales. That's possible. But normally, if that vendor is serving you like that, it probably serving other people like that as well. So typically, you're not the only one they're dealing with. And you want to report the payment you give to the vendor to the government. That is what we're talking about at the end of the year, the 1099 we're saying, right? We do have a webinar on YouTube that you can look at, and that is called Employee versus Subcontractor Webinar. I'm actually going to show you that look right here. You see how this one looks? So this is the webinar we have online that you can look into. This gives you much more details on subcontractor and employee. See, that's one of my Saturday webinar, and it's actually like almost an hour. So you definitely should look into that. Okay, and then let's say in terms of 1099, there's many kind of 1099. The one we used to be really familiar with was 1099 miscellaneous, right? 1099 MISC at the end. We have that, right? And that used to include a lot of things, also including 1099 NEC filing. But right now, since last year, it was broke out. Now we have a 1099 NEC, and we also have 1099 miscellaneous. So let me just quickly cover what's in the 1099 miscellaneous, right? 1099 miscellaneous includes the royalty and dividend and a tax exempt interest, those kind of payments. So if you pay those to your vendor and you need to issue 1099 miscellaneous, the amount which regularly you have to issue, that's $10 and above. So those are in that nature. But there is also a threshold called $600 that you may be familiar with. That is your rent and your prices, the award. When I say your rent, means that when you are paying someone rent, say you have a business and your business occupy a place, you pay the landlord rent, right? And that landlord, if that is an individual, and you will send the 1099 miscellaneous to that person, and that person, when you do the 1099 miscellaneous, it should be put that number under the rent. So if you pay more than 600, you should issue that, okay? So rent is a thing, price and award. So let's say you did a marketing event, people who draw the person, say you went on the Asian Heritage Festival and you have people drawing prize, someone will win a TV from you. That TV cost you $250, okay? Let's use a bigger amount, $2,500. If that is the case, you need to issue a 1099 miscellaneous, and then you want to classify that as a price and the awards. Other like medical health care payment, this is more related to the home care work that people do for providing cares at home, and then you will be getting a 1099 miscellaneous. But that amount is actually under medical health care payments. So these are typical examples of miscellaneous income, right? And of course, if you use form 1099 miscellaneous to report what you made direct sale, at least to $5,000 of a consumer product to a buyer for resale anywhere other than a permanent retail establishment. Let's say this, what it says is that this is a particular item that under 1099 miscellaneous, the government wants you to issue that 1099. Let's say I don't have a retail space, but I just sit at home and putting merchandise online and to sell, right? And say you are my vendor, I buy that from you. So I am not established a retail place, I just buy it. And so you send to Ying. And so that total amount is over 500,000. You know that I am reselling your product. So you would give me a 1099 miscellaneous, not 1099 NEC. Make sense? So that is about 1099 miscellaneous. 1099 miscellaneous form is looking like this. So want to quickly show you what I got here. So this is 1099 miscellaneous, right? So you see we covered rent and the royalty over $10, it should go here. Other income, and you can see this medical health care payment I was talking about earlier. So this gives you an idea about 1099 miscellaneous. So now let's look at 1099 NEC payment. So again, there's a $600 coming into play, like if it is over 600. So the 1099 NEC, you must issue to that person. If that person, the service, provides you service, and it is not your employee. So they provide service to you, but they're not your employee. Then that is the 1099 NEC. And this should including parts and material. So sometimes you have someone, say you hired a gardener to work on your garden, okay? So this gardener, of course, is an individual coming in to work on your garden, and he also buy, supplies to fix your brakes and do all kind of, bought some seeds for you and things like that. So when he charges you, he get reimbursement for what he bought for you, and he also get a check from you showing that he finished this work, so you're gonna pay him $1,000. So what it says here is that when you issue 1099 NEC, you should include the parts and the materials that you wrote checks separately to him, or maybe he asked for reimbursement. So it should include the 1,000 plus the cost of material. So want to make sure that I mention that, because that happens a lot. And the people, even the person who provides service to you was telling you that, oh, pay me this separately. And that's not my income. Yeah, it is not his income. It is indeed not his income, because he will be having the $1,000 plus the material, and he will reduce what he bought out of the calculation. So he only paid taxes on the portion that he really made money. So it is absolutely okay to include the parts and the material. That's what IRS requires you to do as an issuer. And for that person, you want to tell them that, yes, you're right, don't worry, you can deduct your expenses out there so you don't pay more taxes than what you should, right? And of course, the other thing is payment to attorneys. So this is very important. So when you hire an attorney to work for you, and if that attorney is not a company, let's say if it is John Smith, attorney at law, and you need to issue a 1099 NEC. So that is required, okay? Now, let's take a look at what is the 1099 NEC looks like. So I put that on the screen for you. See, that is 1099 NEC. This is a new form, couple years new, and it has a non-employee compensation. This is where you would put that in there, all right? And obviously, you could withhold federal and the state taxes on their behalf, but it's not required. And we do have one or two cases where our client's contractor would require our client to withhold money because they are worried about themselves not having enough money to pay taxes. So obviously you can do that, but it is not something required. And remember when I was showing you the form, and you notice that in here, let's say if you issued something wrong, and you could check box to void it, and by sending the form back to IRS again. Okay, so you issued it already sent it to IRS. Now you want to change it or avoid it, you need to take the same form and do void and to send it in again, or make a corrected one with a new number. So IRS actually looking at this thing to see what is your final number. Obviously, you don't want to correct it more than twice. Then you're going to have corrected, overcorrected. That would be difficult. That would be confusing for IRS to help you. Okay. Now, I want to talk about what not to be reported to 1099 NEC. So you don't need to issue a 1099 NEC to the person who provides service to you. Number one, generally speaking, the payment to corporations, okay, that includes a limited liability company, the LLC, that is treated as a C Corp or S Corp. You know the elections, you can elect LLC to C Corp S Corp, right? If you are electing that to be C Corp S Corp, you actually do not need to issue 1099 NEC. And you're probably going to ask me, okay, Ying, that's easy for you to say. How do I even know? I don't, I have them at work. I don't really know. They're S Corp, C Corp. Their name is LLC, so I should issue that anyway. The best way to know that is to have them fill out the W-9. And you should not have someone work for you as a subcontractor without having them filling out the W-9. On the form of W-9, it will tell you what kind of corporation they are, what is the nature of filing they have. So that's a good place to look for that clue. Then once you know, oh, they are LLC, but they are actually S Corp, then in your system, in your QuickBook, if you use QuickBook, then you don't have to mark the vendor as a 1099 recipients, right? Because they are exempt from receiving a 1099. Of course, the other thing is exempt is the payment of rent to real estate agent and the property management company, property management person. So if you are renting a place, let's say you rent a place, you're a tenant, and you actually write a check to the management company or real estate agent for the monthly rent, you're not required to issue the 1099 NEC. And the business travel allowance that you give to the employee is not required to issue a 1099 NEC. So that is another one I want to mention to you. And of course, payment to tax exempt organization like your donation to Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit, which is nonprofit organization, and you don't need to have a 1099 NEC issued. Okay, so the steps is number one, you're going to clean up your system, know who you need to issue 1099 to. Number two, you want to print that out, file 1096. 1096 is a summary sheet for all the 1099, and you want to get that ready. And the due date for 1099 NEC is the end of January. January 31st, 2022 is due date for 2001 1099 NECs. Okay, but for 1099 miscellaneous, if you file them manually, the due date is at the end of February. If you file them electronically, the due date is the end of March. So they have two separate due dates if it is 1099 miscellaneous, but 1099 NEC, regardless, you file them manually or electronically, they are all due at the end of January. Okay, so that's kind of the process you have. So, but when you do the 1096, the summary for the 1099, make sure that for NEC is one 1096, for miscellaneous 1099 is another one. So you don't combine them, they're separated. So you will do 1096 based on the type of 1099 you're doing. All right, so I kind of mentioned about what happened if you make mistake, right? So both of the forms has the area where you can void that form. Let's say you made a mistake. You want to completely cancel it, issue a new one, and then you want to void the old one, send that in. Then you issue a new one. Okay, that new one you don't need to put changed already, corrected already. No, you don't need to, because you already void the first one. But let's say you have a one and you don't want to void them, you just want to make a correction because the address is wrong, or maybe the social security number was wrong, or even maybe the amount is wrong, but you want to correct what you filed, then you do correct it. So that's how you're going to handle that. And all the information related to 1099 filing, it is really on irs.gov. And this is really the place I go. And, I don't have some secret areas to go to, so I know more stuff than you do know. I just go to irs.gov and to make sure that the knowledge is updated and what's new and I know. So here I am talking to you. So this concludes our talk today related to 1099. It is really important because there's a lot of audit going on related to that. And we just, today even, I was talking to one of the audit case we have. It is the workforce state agency wanting to get hold of all the 1099 NEC that was issued by this business person, because they're trying to classify the subcontractors to see whether they should be employee or they should become subcontractor. So whether you are a subcontractor or you are employee, or you are employee or not, and that is a good webinar we have done some times ago. I showed you the screenshot on here, right? So you can go on to understand the difference, but make sure you do know, make sure you do know the difference, right? And you don't want to mistakenly treat your subcontractor as employee or vice versa, because the money, the bottom line is very different. So in general, if you want me to summarize one sentence for you, what's the difference between subcontractor and the employee from the dollar standpoint? From the dollar standpoint means employee is 25% more expensive than subcontractor. 25%. And that 25% include many things that we calculated, but to make it really easy for you to know and for you to budget, and you just want to know that if you were going to pay me as a subcontractor for $1,000 and me become your employee, that means it will cost you not $1,000, but $1,250. All right, so let's conclude today, and thank you for joining the webinar quickly. And we try to download the knowledge to you as fast as we can. And we hope you enjoyed it. I will see you again on Saturday. Bye-bye.